Every year, hundreds of Canadians are killed and thousands more are injured in crashes involving alcohol, cannabis, and other drugs. Each of these losses is a preventable tragedy. Project Red Ribbon is a life saving initiative created by MAD aimed at combating impaired driving during the holiday season. This annual awareness campaign serves as a reminder of the heightened risks associated with impaired driving when social calendars are at their busiest. I'm joined by the national president of MAD Canada, Tanya Hansen Pratt, to discuss the dangers of drinking and driving. Tanya, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Mothers Against Drunk Driving is a nonprofit organization that was created in 1990, but would you mind further explaining this organization and the importance behind it?
Of course, MAD Canada isn't just about stopping impaired driving, which of course is our major concern, but we're also there to support victims and survivors of impaired driving because we know that the tragedy doesn't end at the scene of the crash. So we're here to support people who have been affected by impaired driving and to help walk them through the criminal justice system, for example, or to help them out in the days, weeks, months, and years afterwards when they're still dealing with the effects of this violent crime.
And I'm curious, how many families has MAD helped out that have dealt with violent crimes that you've just touched on?
Oh, I don't have a number off the top of my head, but definitely in the thousands. We're hearing from new people almost every single day across Canada who have been affected by impaired driving. And if we look at the statistics, we know that every hour in Canada, there are 9 federal and provincial impaired driving charges laid. So we know that every single day, new families are brought into this unfortunate family of ours, of victims and survivors of impaired driving.
And when did the organization create Project Red Ribbon, and how much success have you seen with it?
I believe this is the 37th year of Project Red Ribbon. Don't quote me on that. But definitely well over 30 years of Project Red Ribbon. And this is our annual awareness campaign. And we just ask people to tie on a red ribbon as a visual reminder to remember to drive safe and sober throughout the holiday season. But we also ask that they use that as a tribute to the victims and survivors across Canada who have been affected by impaired driving.
Now, to stay on the topic of driving safe over the holiday season, how important is it to constantly be reminding people not to get behind the wheel after they've been drinking, or even if they have and they say they're fine to drive? How important is it to really push for them to not get behind the wheel?
Well, it's incredibly important, right? We've been saying the same message for decades. I don't think there's a single person in this country who hasn't heard it, and yet people are still dying. It's still one of the leading criminal causes of death in this country. So it's very important that we repeat this message over and over in the hopes that one day I'll be out of a job. I won't have to do this anymore. And it's such a simple message. We simply are just asking that people don't get behind the wheel if they're impaired. We ask that if you know your driver is impaired or appears to be impaired, don't get into the vehicle. And if you are a member of the public and you see someone who you suspect is an impaired driver, call 911.
Now, a lot of people will just say, oh, it's easier for me to just drive. But what are alternatives people can use for transportation if they're going to holiday parties or out for New Year's and planning on having a drink?
There are so many alternatives. The easiest thing that people can do is plan ahead. If you know you're going to be going to a holiday party of some kind, you're going to be consuming alcohol or cannabis, then plan ahead to make sure you have a safe ride home, whether that be with a taxi or Uber or a designated driver or a public transit, or you can call a friend or family member. I grew up out in the country, and so a lot of people often say, well, there aren't those options for me out in the country, but I always got home safely because we would just, I called my best friend's grandmother would come and pick us up. Uh, Shout out to grandma. But there's always a way to get home safely, right?
And
All you
when
have to do.
sorry to cut you off, but I'm
Yeah.
curious, when donations are made to MAD, what do these donations actually go towards?
They help us to support victims and survivors, as I mentioned. We do an annual victims weekend where we bring new victims from across the country who are just really starting this walk. Um, And we bring them to be in Toronto typically, and they attend a candlelight vigil and different workshops where they learn about grief. They learn about the criminal justice system, and they develop those relationships with other people who understand what they've been through. We also use that to change public policy. We meet with governments, provincial governments, federal government, and work on changing that public policy.
Well, Tanya, thank you so much to you and your team at MAD for creating awareness around drinking and driving. Happy holidays.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.